Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
Hey there guys, Unofficial Star Wars here, hope you're all doing well, and in this video we're going to be talking about a potential Star Wars 10, Episode 10, that's right. So without further ado, we're going to hop right on into this to kind of clear the air a little bit here. Yes, there are more than 10 Star Wars movies when you include Solo, a Star Wars story, and also Rogue One, those two spin-off movies. However, talking about it within the main actual Skywalker saga, I guess, timeline here, so to speak, here essentially regarding a whole nother trilogy here at the same time here. In this video, we're going to be taking a read here from Screen Rant and their article here. This article was published at the beginning of summer, and I'm making this video towards the end of the summer. This year was published on June 10th, 2022 here, as it reads, Why Star Wars 10 Should Still Happen Despite the Sequel's Problems. The Skywalker saga concluded with Disney's devised sequel trilogy, but continuing the story with Star Wars 10 and a whole nother trilogy could redeem the sequel's problems. Disney Star Wars efforts concluded the Skywalker saga with the devised sequel trilogy, but the movie franchise can and should move forward with Star Wars 10 despite the problems of the sequels. The Star Wars sequel trilogy is often criticized for its lack of cohesiveness, as it dropped many of the plot threads it had set up and introduced new ones, like the sudden return of Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, with little preface and actual setup for it. A potential Star Wars Episode 10 could improve upon those missteps, however, even continue stories from the sequel trilogy that did not get their proper due. Since the sequel trilogy finished, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and the promise of other Star Wars projects from Disney Plus has brought the franchise to a new height of modern popularity. The Mandalorian moved the story on from the sequel trilogy, opening up the new world of the Star Wars universe to explore with new angles beyond the Skywalker saga. In this way, these shows' success and their rendering of the Star Wars scope could be a roadmap for a fresh approach to Star Wars and Star Wars 10, the future of Star Wars with movies. There is still a deep well of world building to draw on for new stories to happen, as The Mandalorian effectively showcased. The Star Wars sequel trilogy neatly tied up the fates of most of the original trilogy characters, meaning that Star Wars 10 would have an easier time, I guess, distangling its plot from the past with the sequel trilogy. New characters introduced in the sequel trilogy can move forward into another adventure without the shadow of Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, or Emperor Palpatine looming large over them. A new movie to continue the story beyond Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, can learn from the sequel trilogy's mistakes, as the television shows have. With the background of the sequels and that many shows that would premiere before its release, Star Wars 10 could be set up as one of the most creative and imaginative chapters to the story to date. It should also be clearly noted that Star Wars 10 is not being developed as of yet. The future of Star Wars and the Star Wars timeline beyond The Rise of Skywalker is currently unconfirmed and at that unheard of. Many Star Wars projects, including movies, are currently in the works, but none of them at present are set to be the equivalent of Star Wars Episode 10. Disney has Star Wars movie release dates set for December 2023, 2025, and 2027. Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron will tell the story of a new generation of pilots, and Taika Waititi has a Star Wars movie of his own in the works, with a few details about it known so far. Star Wars The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson was involved in creating another trilogy, but unconfirmed reports in November 2021 stated his Star Wars movies have been shelved. But this is something that's kind of been off and on type of thing that's been going on for over the last couple of years, of where it's said that Rian Johnson's trilogy is shelved and then unshelved and then, yeah, so on and so on. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy has said that there are plans to continue telling stories with the sequel trilogy characters at some point. And this is from, I feel like years ago at this point that she said this, but in that quote she says, certainly, those are not characters we're going to forget, ending the quote there. But she said in an interview with Empire that they will live on, and those are conversations that are going to be with the creative team as well. Any of these still mysterious movies in the works, including Kevin Feige's and J.D. Diller's potential Star Wars movies and spin-offs, could shape into Star Wars 10, but the fate of the post-Skywalker timeline is in flux for as of right now. The article states the obvious: the Star Wars sequel trilogy didn't give the Skywalker saga a good ending. The Star Wars sequel trilogy had some great ingredients and thrilling moments, but the story was too inconsistent to feel like a proper ending for the Skywalker Skywalker saga, something Star Wars 10 can fix. It shifted between mirroring itself deeply in Star Wars legacies and rejecting the past as it changed hands between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. This led to such a glaring problems as Rey's parentage changing and Darth Sidious returning from the dead, with only the line "somehow Palpatine returned" to explain his resurrection. To an extent, rather than bringing back the magic of the original trilogy, Palpatine's return instead had the effect of undermining Anakin's final sacrifice in Return of the Jedi, after Darth Vader picks him up and throws him down a reactor shaft and then blowing the place up. The Star Wars sequel trilogy also consistently failed the characters that they introduced from the beginning, such as the massive cut to Finn's expected arc through the trilogy. And of course, we all remember from The Force Awakens and first hearing about that, it was heavily promoted that Finn would be the main character, and that's not exactly how the movie went. So it's also kind of like a marketing, I guess, problem as well that kind of went on with that as well. So from there, the article says that Finn was teased as an important character in the story throughout, a defective stormtrooper who could have become a Jedi, or at least a central figure in the rebellion. Finn, however, got left behind by the sequels, relected to side plots along with Poe Dameron and Rose Tico, who are all great characters, by the way, to the point of where their actions really mattered in the plot overall. This did not make for a subtle cast of characters to continue the type of adventures that Luke, Leia, and Han once had in the original trilogy, with problems underlying both its legacy elements and its new characters. Star Wars 10 is needed to smooth over this rocky ending to the Star Wars saga. Not only can Star Wars 10, but also Star Wars 11 and 12, a whole nother trilogy, can do so much better than the sequel trilogy. There is an open field of responsibilities and possibilities for the Star Wars 10 and a new sequel trilogy. It can pick up where The Rise of Skywalker kind of left off, showing Rey continuing the Jedi Order. It's unclear whether of all the previous cast would return completely, but I just came out with a new video talking about how Oscar Isaac would totally be down for returning, and previously before that, it's also said that Daisy Ridley would love to return as well, and same thing goes for John Boyega, so I think they're all in pretty much. But the right script could reunite them. Finn, Poe Dameron, and Rose, and of course also Rey, could all come back for more central and full character arcs that deliver on their initial promise, as Finn was supposed to be revealed as a Force sensitive, and he semi-kind of was at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. He could join Rey in Jedi training. Poe would be a new leader of the rebellion after the last movie's events, and Rose could finally be fleshed out more with the story of her own, playing more of a, I guess, role here within the rebellion instead of being completely sidelined. However, the drop plots from the sequel trilogy are not the only source Star Wars 10 could draw from. Other Star Wars projects have used pieces of George Lucas's original sequel plans, such as Clone Wars repurposing his plans for Darth Maul. New sequels could also honor some of Lucas's ideas originally and how to continue that story overall. Star Wars 10 could also follow the success of elements from The Mandalorian that did better than the sequel trilogy. That show's central focus was a character who was not a legacy or from an important bloodline, but naturally folded into some of the most well-loved parts of all three Star Wars trilogies, honoring the past while also moving it forward. The Mandalorian took more time to smooth out the sequel trilogy's less well-established plot points, like providing the backstory for the cloning project that Emperor Palpatine truly really had going on here, used to create Snoke and a new body. It also kept the balance that the sequel trilogy should have been able to reach. The Mandalorian also saw success in drawing upon Star Wars Legends, previously the expanded universe as well known as, to bring popular points back from the books such as Dark Troopers and Boba Fett's return into the canon. The sequel trilogy did incorporate Legends twists, turns, and focused on those related to the Skywalkers and largely executed them, too rushed though, however, in that type of fashion. Legends should be ideal source material for a less Skywalker-centric Episode 10, as the next movie would need an antagonist that didn't belong to neither the Empire or the First Order, and executed well. Star Wars 10 would be primed to move on and learn from its continuous sequel trilogy mistakes, and giving it a more fitting future here for its next two movies, Star Wars 11 and Star Wars 12. Now, from there, the article talks a little bit more about how Obi-Wan Kenobi and that show can answer important questions that would move Star Wars 10's story forward, although I'm gonna kind of save that, I guess, maybe for a future separate video, but if you are really that eager to check it out. As I had mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm going to have that full article linked down in the description down below for you guys to check out, so go give it a look if you want to talk a little bit about that. I definitely think that this article brings up some interesting points here for sure. I think that goes without saying, and kind of the elephant in the room almost type of thing, that like Star Wars 10 is like, it's a thing and it kind of needs to happen. It's just the way that it's executed, and I agree with all that. I completely disagree with the way that I think that they would go about with episode 10 here, and I think that maybe I've talked about this in a previous video, but it had to have been from like more than a year ago, because I can't remember if I did make this video, to be honest. I mean, I make so many videos, to be honest with you guys, but the idea consists of essentially an animated series, much like Star Wars The Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, that would take place between The Last Jedi leading up to the event of The Rise of Skywalker, where maybe would have episodes talking about Poe and Finn and Rose and them kind of going on rebellious type of missions, and then also the training that Leia gave to Rey, and also maybe incorporating flashbacks and more context and content at that of Force Ghost Luke Skywalker, and flashbacks to after Return of the Jedi and his training with Leia. That there, for one thing, is something I want to dive deeper on into in a separate future video here on the channel, so make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. On top of that, I also want to talk about some of my own concepts that I would also have here for episode 10 here, and what I'd like to see here, but I also need to cover that in a separate future video because this one's a little bit too long already. And that kind of being said, let me know of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think. Maybe your kind of fan idea of what episode 10 of Star Wars would have and hold here. Where would you go from here? I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think in the comments below. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it, as it really does help with the channel, and check out our Instagram, unofficial Star Wars, more Star Wars that I can. Guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.